Well, speaking of Star Wars, guys, let's talk about
No.
Do
the
we?
latest
Do we need to?
news
All
to
right, and
come
next
out
topic,
of
guys. We're
Kathleen
going to go talk
Kennedy.
about Avatar or anything else.
So we have this article from good friends at Bounding into Comics, where basically Kathleen Kennedy has publicly come out and said that all future Star Wars projects are going to be based off of the High Republic stories, and she's very proud of this fact, despite the fact that the High Republic has, by and large, been a complete disaster. Vader, what's your take on
Mm.
this?
Uh, my take is, I guess Star Wars is officially kind of dead now at this point. I don't know anything about the High Republic other than they have a lot of representation and they have a lot of rock-based life forms. And
Talking rock.
yeah, I have no interest in this. It's it spawns from a giant whiteboard that said inclusion and dinosaurs and purple lightsabers and shit. So um, Kathleen Kennedy's just a moron. If she thinks that the High Republic is going to be a pillar of the future of Star Wars, then she's just kind of dumber than we all think she already is, right? I mean, everything that I've seen about the High Republic is a failure. They have poor selling comics, they have poor selling books. They're never going to be able to support a live action show or especially a movie franchise based on the High Republic. And honestly, they're I kind of at this point hope they do it. I mean, why not? Let's just milk the holy living hell out of how bad Star Wars is, and let's get some clicks and views on our YouTube channels, right? Because that's all it's good for anymore. That's all it's good for. And bring it, Kathleen. Let's go. Give us some stuff to talk about because it's certainly not going to be good. Yeah. So anyway, that's it.
So D-Dubs, this is kind of coming off the heels of the failure of Galactic Star Cruiser and the underperformance of, Disney's Star Wars Land or whatever you want to call it. What's your take on this? Why do you think Kathleen Kennedy just keeps doubling down on trying to destroy everything Lucasfilm holds dear?
Well, let's review the last 2 weeks. The Galactic Star Cruiser cannot stay open under any pricing system that they could come up with. It just has to close. It is better as a tax write-down than as a theme park attraction. Willow has been wiped off of Disney Plus. Willow, another major franchise, or was supposed to become a major franchise under Lucasfilm, had to be removed also as a tax write-off. It is better as a tax write-off than it is as streaming content. Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is being eviscerated in the reviews by the people who are most inclined to review it positively. So it has no chance. It will be a bomb at the box office. Given its budget, it's one of the most expensive films ever made. It will probably lose in excess of $100 million. And I would suggest it probably will lose upwards of $200 million depending on its success there. Now, at the same time, and the media is not reporting this, so it's kind of a struggle because you put this info out and everybody says, what's he talking about? He's crazy. Disney is really hurting for money. They're not covering that at all in the mainstream, but we have done extensive reporting on that. Mexican Iron Man has validated that information. Of course, he's a major CPA out there. That's not often talked about on YouTube. We've done investigative journalism into this. Disney is trying in every way possible to get as much money as they can because they're at war with Comcast trying to purchase Hulu. And it's not going to be easy for Disney. Disney is operating with a very small amount of emergency funds. Now, all of this combined with some things we've heard from sources, it's almost painful to say this because it's been said so many times by people who are well-meaning but also charlatans. But it's my belief that Kathleen Kennedy will not be at Lucasfilm for more than 1 year. Now, do I know that to be true? No, of course, it's in the future. But there are strong indicators now happening that don't have anything to do with the normal fan accusations, which we all know and which we probably hold. But it's now becoming a business situation. Now, in terms of what she said, Kathleen Kennedy says that they're going to do all the future Star Wars stuff on High Republic. Well, except for the Rey movie. Well, except for the Dave Filoni movie, the Mandoverse movie. Well, except for, we could keep going. Except for the Skeleton Crew. We can keep going. Kathleen Kennedy doesn't know what she's talking about.
Nope.
And what that means is that she's disconnected. There was a question asked to her at the Indiana Jones, screening at the Cannes Film Festival, where she was asked about the writer's strike, and she had no meaningful answer to that either. And all of that is leading me to believe that she truly is disconnected. The Star Wars celebration that they just had viewership that was below what large YouTubers get for big streams. They can't ignore this because they don't have the money any longer to hold her on as a pariah. Because in the past, they didn't care if she bombed because it was more painful to get rid of her. But now, when you're operating with only 3 to 6 weeks of emergency funds as a company, and your stock is at the lowest it's been in 5 years, and that means that you can't purchase Hulu like you thought you could, and the 10 million that you thought, or the 10 billion you thought you could purchase it for, has been increased to like 35 billion by Comcast, and you've already programmed Disney Plus to feature Hulu as a tab inside there. You can't afford for this woman to make a Ray movie that will lose 200 million, to make a Mandoverse movie that will lose 200 million, and you say, well, they won't lose 200 million. Well, Solo lost money, and Indy's going to lose more. Do they really want the risk?
So, Odin, Kathleen Kennedy famously came out and said, like, Star Wars has no source material to draw from. and in this article, she's quoted as saying, you have a huge book initiative with the High Republic and all these novels coming out. So is that a space where we're going to start seeing more on-screen adaptations? I guess this was actually the podcast host who asked her about this. But in Kathleen Kennedy's mind, now that there are actual novels to draw material from, that those being the High Republic, now she's like, oh, we can mine those for future Star Wars stuff. And so she's seeing it as, okay, this is stuff that under my regime was source material that was created. Therefore, it's it's stuff that we can pull from to make future Star Wars movies and TV shows from. What's your take on this?
Well, also it's interesting because I'm glad that WD brought it up, saying how we could talk about, or she can say how they're gonna, the future is High Republic, and yet there's all of these other things that are going on. But also, if you think about it from the way that you just worded it there, well, it kind of has to be, because she knows, or we would presume that she would know, if they were to put out a High Republic film next year or in 2 years, the movie wouldn't do anything. No one would be going to see it, because no one's been reading these books. No one's been diving into these stories at all.
You're not going to either.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's almost as if she's like, okay, well, we're going to wind down, right, this old era, right? Because the Rey movie, they could try and say, oh, yeah, it's going to be its own thing. It's not going to be a part of the 9-film series. But in reality, it's like, yeah, but where was she introduced in the 9-film series? And so if this is a continuation of her story, by default, it's a continuation of that story too, right?
It's still a default continuation of the Skywalker saga, right? Because she's
the Skywalker.
Ray
Skywalker. Yes, exactly, right? If we were being honest, Ray Palpatine, but no, Ray Skywalker. That's a continuation of that, right? But you could still look at it and say, but it's you're just getting that much further away, right? And I think that all these other stories are going to get just slightly further away. And I hope that they realize that it's going to be a terrible financial decision for them. But I think in her mind, she's thinking long term, when she doesn't realize that she doesn't really have a long term to work with anymore, because she's destroyed the IP so much. And so she's thinking, oh, well, once all this stuff winds down, well, then the High Republic will be there and it'll be great. And there'll be this rejuvenation. But I love what Vader was saying about how, it's the death of Star Wars. It's like, what are we on, death number 10, death number 20? Because it feels like they do something every single day that just causes us to be like, oh man, this has to be the end. But then also too, going back to also what was being said before about Kathleen Kennedy being clueless, the image that popped into my head was from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. And it was when you had, I forgot the director's name, but he's just sitting in the chair doing Good Will Hunting 2, and he's just counting his money. He's like, I'm busy, Ben. I'm busy. Like, that's what Kathleen Kennedy seems like. Is she's just there with the money, not really doing anything at all, because I think she is clueless.
Hey, guys. If you could do me a quick favor, if you like this episode and it tickles your fancy, or any other episode that we've done in the past, share it on social media and tag us in that post so that we know you're talking about us, and we will immediately jump onto that app and we will respond to your tag, and we can talk about what you like about the episode and possibly talk about something that we might want to cover in the future. And we would love to bring you in our community. We have a wonderful Discord app as well. There's a bunch of people in there that just love chatting with us. And we'd love to hear from you. So if you like this podcast, tag us in that post and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you guys so much. Back to the podcast.
I just got this picture in my head of when she says stuff like that, of Timothy Zahn going out onto his porch and screaming into the sky.
I have no source material.
What do you mean? What are you doing?
So let me tell you guys a very short and very funny story that connects Timothy Zahn and the High Republic. And very briefly before I do, let me say it's a weird feeling to have been the person saying Kathleen Kennedy will not retire at Star Wars Celebration. None of this is happening. And I took fire from people on that.
I mean, I've been saying that for years.
Yeah, and then after that, I said, by the way, she probably is now going to exit Lucasfilm, although she'll be quote unquote promoted, and take fire that side. So it's been very interesting whiplash. But here's the very short, very funny story. So Barnes and Noble was they received a contract from the Walt Disney Company to put High Republic material on the end cap spaces inside their stores. That's the most premium space inside the store.
Big
and
real
so
estate.
they did so, but they couldn't sell the books at all. They didn't, and so they're losing that premium real estate to just defunct kind of novels.
Well, they're not losing it because Disney pays like $50,000 per store for that in cap space.
Right, but so here's what's funny about it. Talking about the Timothy Zahn situation. So what Barnes and Noble did is they looked in the contract and found a loophole, which allowed them to put the High Republic at the very bottom of the shelf and even on the floor, stacking it on the floor. God. And then they literally, in the end cap, put the Timothy Zahn novels back on that end cap above the High Republic and managed to actually sell stuff using the end cap while navigating that contract.
That's awesome.
And we have photos from Barnes and Nobles all over the country on that park place. Now that's like a 2-3 year old article, but it's really funny.
That's fantastic.
I don't know if you know this, D-Dubs, but I'm a published novelist. And during my time as a professional novelist, I looked into, how much it costs for those Barnes and Noble end caps and stuff like that. And they are not cheap. And so all the books that get featured in those things, the companies are paying a premium price to have their books featured there.
Well, now as a professional novelist, then, let's get your take on this. I'm sure you've never spoken about the High Republic on any show on YouTube ever.
We don't talk about it very much, honestly.
But as a professional novelist, where do you think they went wrong in terms of building this up to be some new era of Star Wars that could be successful at all?
They went back in time. They should have gone forward.
That's yes.
That's the main issue with all of like Star Wars and stuff, and to some extent Star Trek, is that the creatives keep going back because it's easier to come up with stories that have already kind of been established than creating new stuff and moving forward. Like if a franchise just keeps going back in time, to the first Jedi and like all this other stuff, it's slowly dying, right? Because it's not doing anything new. You can't innovate by going back in time. Star Trek tried to do this by putting holograms on the original Enterprise and all this other stuff. And fans were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like this is not how the Enterprise was. So when you have a situation where there is no forward progression with a franchise, it becomes stagnant, it becomes stale, and it becomes boring. And that's the issue that's going on with Star Wars and the High Republic.
But the amazing thing about Lucasfilm and their incompetence, I mean, this really is something. You're right that usually, if you go back, then you're regressing. Lucasfilm also has the ability, it is uncanny, to go into the future, to take their franchise forward and regress simultaneously. They are able to destroy their characters both in prequel form with the Kenobi series and in sequel form with Luke, Leia, and Han. It's incredible.
But even the sequel form wasn't forward because JJ just recycled the original trilogy.
Regurgitated.
Right? Yeah, the sequel trilogy literally brought nothing new to the table. It was just a reformatted version of A New Hope. So, it was a reset. The First Order was the Empire. The Resistance was the Rebellion. It was zero new stuff, right?
So you're saying when he brought Palpatine, zombie Palpatine, one of a million of those back with 10,000 Star Destroyers, returned. You're saying that was not original. Hold on, I'm writing this down. Hang on.
Not at all. Yeah. So I like that's the death knell for any franchise. But real quick, I want to call up 2 super chats. One from our salty superstar, the Aster Nerd Boy, for $5. Star Wars is dead. I used to want a Knights of the Old Republic adaptation, but no longer. KK and company would trash it beyond belief. The best Knights of the Old Republic adaptation is the video game. Just go play that. It's got a great story to it. The MMO
always
was a
hear
lot
that.
of fun.
Yeah.
You know, so like the video game is the superior version. If they made it into a movie, they would just ruin it. And
Now,
then we got,
was that an Xbox? That was not an Xbox exclusive, right? That was on PS3 as well.
no, it was on PC and all the
I think it was on all of them.
yeah,
Okay.
it was basically everything. Back when BioWare used to be good. Bob Dorsey for $20, another salty Saturday superstar. I may be wrong, but looking at this like a business doesn't work to me. They are the propaganda wing of Hollywood elites with a limitless supply of printable, literally money. Just my 2 cents. Yeah, Hollywood has always been the propaganda wing of the Communist Party. In fact, Razorfist just came out with a really good rant talking about how Walt Disney was very anti-communist, and he'd be ashamed of what the company is doing nowadays. And it was very interesting where he basically talked about how a lot of communists got into positions of script reading. And for those of you who don't know, script readers are the ones who approve a script to be passed on to a producer or director or something like that. And so because there were a lot of communist leaning script readers in Hollywood in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that, any anti-communist or anti-subversive material never even got to the creatives, right? Because they would just kill it before it got anywhere. So there's something far more nefarious going on in Hollywood, and I know that when I worked there, for the most part, like the left-leaning totalitarian socialist / communist political beliefs are very much there because those things tend to support the elite, right? And everyone in Hollywood wants to be part of the elite, the rich and stuff like that.
The other funny thing about Hollywood is that they will come up with a cause de force for some time being, right? So we just saw that. We saw that with the Weinstein situation and then the movement that happened after it. And what happens in Hollywood is they make this giant movement where they believe that they are the avatars for changing the world. And the rest of the world looks at Hollywood and their movement and goes, we don't do any of that. That's just you. That's just you over there acting like a bunch of absolutely immoral reprobates. So it is funny to watch them have these moral epiphanies that the rest of the world had centuries ago.
Hey guys, if you like this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and comment below on your favorite video as well. That goes a long way with helping us boost our channel and get out there in front of more people. And it lets YouTube know that we're doing something right. And if you want to catch us live, we go live 2 times a week, once on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time and on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So join us there in the chat. We will see you on the live stream. Stay salty.